Alright, new Kirby game came out. Not sure what to expect. I've never played anything Kirby and... it's so beautiful. Hi, I'm Try, and today we're going to cover the UI for Kirby Air Riders. I got my college degree in graphic design with an emphasis in UI UX, so hopefully I can shed some insights in an entertaining and educational format. Also a disclaimer, I am not the end-all be-all of design. I might get things wrong or view it from a perspective that doesn't accurately capture the entire whole of the audience the developers are trying to reach. So just keep that in mind and please engage in the comments if you have thoughts as well. I love hearing from y'all. But first things first, initial impressions on just looking at the screen. I like it. There's a UX law called the aesthetic usability effect that fits this perfectly. Users often perceive aesthetically pleasing design as design that's more usable. Now, aesthetics are somewhat subjective. This may not look attractive to everyone, but in an age of modern, sleek UI, a lot of it looks relatively the same and, honestly, kinda boring. UI doesn't have to look stale. It can be a part of the experience separate from the actual game playing experience. Is it easy to navigate? Is it nice to look at? Two pieces of an extremely important pie. Now, this may be conjecture, but I have a theory as to why the UI aesthetic is based on an office desk. This goes back to a very important year, 2008. What happened in 2008? The release of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Oh, okay, that's kinda related, but no, it's actually the year that Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of Super Smash Bros. And Kirby, got married to his now wife, Michiko Sakurai. Michiko has been creating the UI for Sakurai's games since all the way back in 1999 with the release of the original Super Smash Bros., and worked on many subsequent projects with Sakurai doing the UI as well as other graphic design jobs. Her UI work is pretty striking, you know it when you see it, and Kirby Air Riders is no exception. Some people might say it looks a lot like the Smash Bros menus, but personally I think it's more in line with Kid Icarus Uprising, and I actually talk about it in the second video I ever made. You should, check that out, wink wink. But I imagine being married to the director of some of the greatest games of all time and working on these amazing projects must have been an awesome experience for Michiko. I mean, who gets to make games with their significant other? It's so cool. She's been working with Sakurai on these wonderful games that we love so much since 1999, and has witnessed firsthand the dedication and love her husband has for his craft. I think that directly inspired her UI decisions for Kirby Air Riders. Now, if we look at the intro for Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo 64, we'll see these toy-like figurines that turn into some of our childhood heroes fighting on, yeah, a desk. Suddenly the dots start connecting, and once you see that Smash 64 used a desk to anchor its world, it makes the office aesthetic of Kirby Air Riders UI feel way less random. It becomes almost nostalgic, like a small creative fingerprint from a couple who's been making games together for decades. It's not just UI. It's a snapshot of their shared life bleeding into the things they create. Michiko does a great job at capturing our attention in this menu. Remember, motion creates emotion. It's attention grabbing and there's a lot of motion in this menu. The flashing lines indicate the hover state or what's currently able to be selected. You also get just the cutest little Kirby figurine, which again throws me back to the whole Smash Bros. Toy thing. But you also have the acrylic board on the right showing video footage and a short description of each feature below it. The events button is rainbow and is shining. The lessons button is changing gradient that also sparkles. You get random little nudges from the clipboard reminding you that, hey, I'm here too. And the bottom menu tabs have a shine that kinda runs through each tab. So yeah, it's a lot. Kinda feels like you're a kid in the candy store. There's a lot here competing for your attention, and I think if the buttons weren't so vastly different from each other, it'd be a pretty big issue. But the spacing between cards and the video/text appear to give you more information, you're able to navigate it alright. Again, this is kind of the trade-off of a really fun UI that's full of color and honestly does a good job of representing what it feels like to play the game. Colorful chaos. If we hop into the Air Ride menu for a second, we get just the most fun transition to more menu. The Air Ride title is a physical cutout on a toothpick. I love it. Easily my favorite touch has to be that online match is a freaking smartphone. It's online because it connects to the internet and our phones connect us to other people and it's so practical. And that's another UX term, Skeuomorphism, which involves designing digital interfaces that imitate physical elements, reducing the learning curve for unfamiliar interactions. In other words, if you knew this was a game and removed all icons and text from each menu option, which would you think is online? The same can be said for the clipboard. What goes on a clipboard? Business things, maybe a list or a checklist? Yep, the checklist is one of my favorite Sakurai design choices. It's his own personal achievement system that appears in a lot of his games, and the original Kirby Air Ride was where it debuted. But rather than guess or try to remember what you need to do for certain tasks, you can hit this little attempt button by pressing plus to immediately get into the action and get your achievement. This may seem small, but it's a huge quality of life change that you would never think to implement until it's actually implemented, and then in future games we'll have achievements and be like, why can't we have this feature? Also, fun small detail I like, but the rewards list button prompt matches the color of the tab and looks like it was drawn in pen or marker or something. Neat touch. We'll go to the 5 tabs next, and you know, we need to cut Michiko some slack. Do you know how hard it would be to categorize everything with how many features Sakurai puts in his games? I mean, it's a great problem to have, but I can totally see Michiko creating some mock-ups or flows and being like, alright, we're solid, everything's in place and it makes sense. Then Sakurai goes, hey, so you're going to need to find a place for vehicle creation, a music player, the player's license, and gummies. I'm sure that's not how their game design philosophy works, but I thought it was funny. If we actually look at the UI for starting an air ride match, for example, we go to a stage select screen quite reminiscent of Smash Bros. Titles, something grid-based with images to represent the courses. I love the large image that fills the background and the particles that change color depending on the course you're hovering over. It really makes you feel the speed and energy of the game before jumping into the course. There's also subtle particle effects like leaves falling from Mount Amber Falls or wind rustling through Airtopia ruins. Now this screen here has to be my favorite. Maybe, I don't know, there's a lot of great menus in Kirby Air Riders, but you really feel the energy here. Not only is your character traveling on the background that has multiple swirls happening, but the actual cards themselves have these speedline effects to make it look like they're also in motion. So many elements here contribute to the fact that you're about to enter a high-speed race. I like how each character gets information about them in their respective specials. Information like this is very necessary when it comes to choosing your character. Both the characters and vehicles have stats that will combine, which is great for gameplay variety and replayability, something that Sakurai seems to have mastered. You line up when you've selected your loadout, and I love that this is a menu. This isn't the race yet, but it feels like you're already in it. The text here at the bottom isn't super legible, but it doesn't matter because the A button also means progression, and you can press pretty much anything that isn't B, which most people recognize as a game's back button. Getting into the races themselves, it's pretty hard to concentrate on the UI because everything about races are frantic. I think the most important thing for you to know is when your special is up, and they put it right front and center. You really can't miss it. It flashes and doesn't go away until you lose your opportunity. Secondary information would be everything else. Placement does matter, but I think most people are looking ahead at opponents to dictate where they're at. A glance usually doesn't hurt, and the number is big enough that you don't get distracted and make control mistakes. The times here at the top, and then probably my favorite HUD element, is the arrow that shows you where your character's aiming and whether or not you're headed towards a wall or the side of a track. It's helpful on the ground and in the air, so it really covers all your bases. The gauge at the bottom shows your speed in miles per hour, shoutouts America, and your special gauge, which I didn't pay attention to until making this video. You're rewarded with a results screen also reminiscent of Super Smash Bros. Results screens with a fun character animation into a colorful freeze frame and confetti. How nice. My professors would call these joy moments. You want to reward users after completing tasks you set them up to do, and seeing this screen and that gummy in the bottom left definitely makes me want to keep playing. I'm running out of time for this week's video, but there were some UI elements in the paddock I didn't necessarily love, such as removing character and vehicle descriptions, at least from the select menu within paddocks, which wasn't a great experience for someone that jumped into online with maybe an hour of game under his belt. I also struggled with knowing when every person in the paddock had readied it for the game without going to a menu to see green checks by everyone's names or physically walking around the space. I'm sure I missed a lot of UI elements in screens such as vehicle creation, which I will be making a whole video about, among other features, but I covered what I thought was important. I also don't love a lot of the iconography choices for power-ups. When I'm playing City Trial, I feel like I really only know what the wings mean, what the weight means, what the heart means, and I think that's top speed. Like, how does this signify defense, and how does this signify attack? I had a hard time knowing if what I was grabbing in City Trial was even viable for stadium events. Like stadium events that I knew were happening from the beginning. So those are probably my biggest gripes with some of the UI elements, but that shouldn't detract from how great I think this UI is. And in saying that, I want to come back to the desk aesthetic. I can't stop thinking about the idea that Michiko might have been paying homage to the very first project she and her husband ever worked on together, and what that really means. In the Smash Bros intro, we see Master Hand swooping around, playing with these little figures. I've always liked to imagine those hands as the hands of a child. Not just any child, but Masahiro Sakurai himself. But the desk we see in Air Riders is different. It's still a desk, but not the same one. Now we see pens, pencils, papers, clipboards, plants, a notebook. It's the desk of someone older. Someone who's outgrown childhood, who's filled that notebook with years of ideas and sketches and dreams, all with the hope of reaching players and bringing them joy. In a way, this desk becomes a bridge between their childhood and ours, between the games we grew up with and the ones we share with people we love today. Time keeps moving, and we all outgrow a few desks along the way, but I'm so grateful for the experiences Masahiro and Michiko Sakurai have crafted for me, and I'll carry them with me, no matter how old my desk gets. If you enjoyed this dive into the design of Kirby Air Riders, consider subscribing and sharing this with a friend. I upload every single week. Huge thanks to my patrons who support me here on YouTube and on Patreon. You guys are helping me get one step closer to my dream of doing YouTube full-time. If you want to help me turn this dream into a dream job, I'd really appreciate your support. Links to my Patreon, YouTube memberships, and Discord server are all in the description down below. If you want to know what I think about Mario Kart World's UI design, click the video that'll pop up. Thanks for watching, I appreciate you being here, and as always,
thank you for all your support!